We're going to have a contest. Who has a brighter jacket?
That would be me. Oh, next to Casey.
I called Maisie this morning, Madam Magenta. Thank you. It is. On behalf of our caucus, we thank you for the compliment to Ms. Hirono's jacket. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. And let me say that I thought the questioning period yesterday was very good for us. It showed how flimsy, how specious, and how dangerous the Republican arguments were. I want to go over some important moments from that first period of senators' questioning yesterday, nearly all of which made the case for witnesses and documents. And some of the best questions actually came from Republicans, from Senator Collins and Murkowski. Asked the president's counsel if they could give an example of the president expressing concern about Hunter and Joe Biden before the former vice president announced his candidacy. The president's counsel could not point to a single example to support the claim, so he made up a bogus excuse that his answer was limited to what's in the record. Senator Romney asked the president's counsel if they could clarify the specific date when the president ordered the delay in military assistance and what reason he gave for doing it. Again, president's counsel could not point to anything to answer Senator Romney. Now, these are crucial points, and they get right at the question of corrupt motive, the simple, factual questions, and the president's counsel unable to answer them. Wow. You know who could help them answer those questions? Mick Mulvaney, John Bolton, and our other two witnesses. So could the documents that we have asked to subpoena. A few other moments stood out. I asked presidents, they said they were not demanding absolute immunity. So I asked them to name a single document or a single witness that the House counsel requested as they went through the process that the president said, okay, not one. They couldn't name one. Mr. Philbin had to filibuster, PH, get it? Philbin, filibuster. Had to filibuster an answer as to the general reasons they might call immunity. Another moment stood out amazingly. On Monday night, Mr. Dershowitz advanced a scarcely believable argument of impeachment. Yesterday, he went even further, suggesting that because presidents believe their reelection is in the public interest, when they do things to benefit their reelection, it is in the public interest, and they can basically do whatever they want. I hear he's correcting it on TV today. That seems to be Mr. Dershowitz's pattern. He gives a statement on the floor and then spends the next day correcting it. What a load of nonsense. By Dershowitz logic, President Nixon did nothing wrong in Watergate. He was just breaking into the DNC to help his reelection, which of course is in the public interest, according to Dershowitzian logic. The Dershowitz argument, frankly, would unleash a monster. More aptly, it would unleash a monarch. Think about this. According to Dershowitz, impeachment is only for criminal offenses. Meanwhile, President Trump's Justice Department argues that a sitting president can't be indicted, can't indict for criminal conduct, can't impeach for non-criminal conduct. The president could blackmail a foreign country into poisoning our elections and get away with murder, literally, so long as he's in office. Republicans have gone from denying the president what the president did to normalizing it by claiming every president does it, to now saying there's nothing wrong with it even if he did it. It's incredible. The lengths they will go to justify something most of them, not all, but most, know is wrong. The president's counsel is asking us to confer two new rights on the presidency: the right to ask foreign countries to investigate their political opponents, and the right to prevent Congress from investigating their opponents. If Senate Republicans vote to endorse these ideas by shutting down a fair trial, they could spell the end of presidential accountability as we know it. Today we'll finish the question and answer period. Then tomorrow we'll take a crucial vote on whether we will debate having witnesses and documents in this trial. The fate of much of the future of how this republic conducts itself is on the shoulders of 4 Republicans. I believe Senate Republicans and the President's team are worried about the vote. Yesterday, Mr. Sekulow said that if the Senate elects to subpoena witnesses and documents, the President's team will force all sorts of manner of delay. Take the managers to court, assert privilege, drag it on forever. It was a shocking admission from Mr. Sekulow, revealing how concerned the President's team are, how afraid they are of eyewitnesses to the President's conduct coming before the Senate. Of course, his argument isn't true. There's no reason for endless delays. The documents are compiled. One key witness has already said he'd testify. We'd expect the others to comply if subpoenaed, and questions of privilege can be sorted out right here in the Senate. Mr. Sekulow's argument was nothing more than a threat, a shakedown. He told senators to their faces that the President's team will do whatever it possibly can to prevent them from seeing the truth. It reminds you of something the President would do or say, and it should offend my Republican colleagues just as much as it offends us Democrats. We are a nation founded on the idea of truth, of reasoned debate, of facts, ideas, argument. That's all we're seeking in the trial. As we've said before, we don't know what the 4 witnesses will say. They're presidential appointees. We don't know what the documents will reveal. They might be exculpatory. They might be further incriminating. We'll live with the facts. We'll live with the truth and let the chips fall where they may. Will our Republican friends? It is certainly in their interest and the President's interest that we have a fair trial. A trial without truth, without key evidence, without witnesses and documents, would render the President's acquittal meaningless, a giant asterisk next to it, because the trial was so rigged in his favor. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Senator Schumer. I don't know if there's such a thing as a gruntled former employee, but it turns out that President Trump has plenty of disgruntled former employees, and it seems to be the genesis of a lot of tweets these days. John Kelly, John Bolton. Listen to what they said yesterday when they talked about the John Bolton manuscript, which they never, ever really conceded that they received at a certain date. They said this manuscript contained top secret information and therefore couldn't be released to the American public. Excuse me if I'm suspicious, but I think the John Bolton manuscript is now in the same desk drawer as the president's tax returns. Instead of an IRS audit, the John Bolton manuscript is going through a security audit that I'm sure will not be completed until after this trial is over. So now we have John Bolton's professed position that the president told him that he was actually doing this, withholding funds from Ukraine for political purposes, which is going to be held back from the American public as long as possible. John Bolton should be testifying. What we heard yesterday from those on the other side was the continuing position that this is going to be something like a trial without witnesses and evidence. The American people know a lot more about trials than that, and they certainly understand that it's no trial without evidence and witnesses, and John Bolton, Mick Mulvaney, and the 2 others we've mentioned should be starters. Now, this threat, too, that they're going to prolong this indefinitely because it is going to be the only way to deal with this issue really raises another question. Do I understand that Senator McConnell is now arguing we cannot wait to get back to the business of the Senate? The business of the Senate? Last calendar year, we considered 22 amendments on the floor of the United States Senate in the entire year. 22. 6 of them from Rand Paul that were dead on arrival. He insisted on a vote before we could leave town. 22 amendments. And now they are arguing with a straight face, if this trial goes on for another week, it's going to keep us away from serious Senate business. The only Senate business we know has been Mitch McConnell's passion to fill every federal vacancy with a lightly qualified, maybe even unqualified person for a lifetime appointment. And can I say a word about Professor Dershowitz? 50 years on the Harvard faculty. I'm sure many people respect him for that, and I certainly do too. But it's no longer Professor Dershowitz appearing before the United States Senate. It's Advocate Dershowitz. Those of us who've been in a trial situation know that when you're hired by someone, when you have a client, you do everything in your power to argue that the law and the facts are on your side, sometimes pushing the truth just to make sure that your client will win. What we've seen from Professor Dershowitz is exactly that. He is arguing now, as Senator Schumer said, that if you can identify something as president that's in your political interest and say that's the national interest, then all bets are off. They can go forward from that point and do anything they wish with impunity. Is that really where we want to go as a nation? Honestly, if people are going to believe that this is a true republic or democracy, depending on your taste, they have to understand that the leaders in this country are subject to accountability and the rule of law. The Republicans have missed that, and unfortunately, it's at our expense. The last point I would make is this. I listened to these questions yesterday and understood that there are at least, I hope, 3 Republicans who are seriously considered joining us when it comes to witnesses. We need more, and I hope that there will be more who will join us. This has to be a real trial at the end of the day for the American people to believe in it. If we're going to bring this nation together, we won't with a short-circuited trial so Mitch McConnell can return to his judicial vacancies. I hope the questioning today moves along that track. I also want to say that the closing comments by Mr. Philbin in the first part of the question period that suggested that he could receive information from foreign sources without any concern really is a problem. If that is the new standard, God save us, because we're now relying, unfortunately, on an election process that is not protected from information sources that do not have the best interests of the United States in mind. The efforts they're making to distort and twist the truth when it comes to the security of our elections could hurt us for many years to come.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you. We are witnessing the coronation of Trump, with Mitch McConnell holding the crown and the Republicans holding his train. So we already know that Trump believes that he can do anything he wants under Article 2 of the Constitution. So yesterday, we listened to, during 8 hours of question and answers, this, what I would call insane view being pushed out to the rest of the country. Amazing. My colleagues talked about, in very concrete terms, what they think Trump can do. And I want to put this into a larger context of what a president who believes that he can do anything he wants under Article 2. This is not a president who cares about checks and balances. So this is a president who already brought us to the brink of war with Iran. Who knows what's going to happen with North Korea as Kim Jong-un continues to play him. The president continues to go after immigrants tooth and nail. We have to ask ourselves, what group is he going to go after next? And he's already given us that information. The next group he's going to go after are seniors, because he's going to cut Social Security benefits. I represent a state that has a lot of seniors. And believe me, I looked it up. Alabama, Arkansas, Maine, Vermont, West Virginia. These are states that have almost 1 in 5, more than 1 in 5 of their population relies on Social Security. So when he continues to go after immigrants, not enough of us speak out, but all the people who live in these states, I hope they're listening, because we now have King Trump who's going to go after your Social Security. This is the larger context in which the president who believes he can do anything he wants under Article 2 operates. And that is the danger we face. And what is it going to take for us to fight back? Well, is by fighting back, and that's why we're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maisie. Okay. Questions? Yes.
The possibility that this witness vote could end 50-50 has been raised. Do you anticipate that the Chief Justice would weigh in there or step back?
Look, right now our focus is on getting 4 Republicans. We shouldn't have to rely on what the Chief Justice will or will not do. We need 4 Republicans to understand what the crisis that the president has created, to understand the weightiness of the arguments, and the fact that in impeachment you must have a fair trial. That's where our focus is.
If you don't get
Nope,
the
that's
votes,
it.
would you,
Leader Schumer, could you give us some insight on those conversations you're having with Republicans one-on-one?
I don't get,
Reading that,
look,
are they listening?
we all talk to Republican colleagues, and we've made the same arguments we've made here, which is that fairness dictates a fair trial, and impeachment dictates a fair trial. We would forever give up the right, one of the last checks on an overreaching president who thinks he can do anything he wants if you can't get witnesses and documents. And, you know, I think some of them are weighing it. Yes.
Leader Schumer, you mentioned the future of the Republic is on the shoulder for.
I could, you got to speak up a little.
You mentioned that the future of the Republic is on the shoulder for Republicans. Do you feel like that fourth vote is still up for grabs? And if so, how do you plan to?
Look, we've always said this is an uphill fight. The pressure that Trump, who's a vindictive, nasty president, and McConnell place on them is large, but we're still hopeful. Truth prevails. Our caucus is so strong and so united because, frankly, we believe we have truth and right on our side, and to boot, after 4 weeks of talking about this, the American people are strongly on our side. The overwhelming majority, 75%, including a significant majority of Republicans, are for witnesses and documents. And, you know, it's rare in a public poll that you get Republican rank and file disagreeing with President Trump. But in this case, they do. So we're continuing to make the argument and make the fight, and we think that truth can prevail, and we can get the 4 votes. Yes, Mr. CNN.
So GOP leaders seem increasingly confident that they can block witnesses and documents from being called, and they say they want to move to a vote on acquittal tomorrow night. And I would like to know, is there anything you can do to delay or stall? I know there's.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to characterize. The bottom line is our focus is on the vote on witnesses and documents. As you know, the leaders' resolution doesn't go past that. The minority has rights, and we will exercise those rights. Yes.
I was actually going to.
Okay. Yes.
Just more specifically on the motions, like what motions would you?
We're not going to get into that here. Our focus right now is on getting the 4 votes. It's a bonus, yeah.
Do you believe that the Senate should deliberate as a jury privately on the question?
We'll decide. We will decide. That is allowed by the rules.
It's ambiguous.
Well, it says you can deliberate. Obviously, a majority vote determines everything. And again, we will decide that as we move forward. But the bottom, nope, that's it. Yes, Cheryl.
You've talked about Democrats being united, and you've also talked about this being a vote, the ultimate vote to acquit or convict as a vote of conscience. What message would it send if some Democrats voted to acquit
Look,
the president?
we're focused on the 4 votes here to get witnesses and documents. I believe the House managers have made an extremely strong argument, and we're focused on getting the 4. And that's where the focus will be. Our caucus is totally united on that issue, which will determine where we go from there. Yes.
I wonder if you could speak to the Senate as a deliberative body dealing with impeachment from the Clinton times, how it behaved then, what your observation was, versus now.
Well, there's obviously 2 things. A, much more polarization, obviously. I think a lot of our Republican colleagues, frankly, know what the right thing to do is, know we have truth on our side, but we've never had a president, as I said, who's as vindictive and nasty as this one, and he strikes fear in the hearts of a lot of people. But the second difference is, with Nixon trial and Clinton trial, there was cooperation. Clinton went before the grand jury. There were loads of witnesses and documents made available by both Nixon and Clinton. This is the first president who, in this guise of absolute immunity, has stonewalled everything. That's a huge difference. That's why the need for witnesses and documents, even though they were available in Nixon and in Clinton, are even more needed now. No, you. Last question.
You dismissed over the last couple of days the idea of a witness deal. Has your thinking changed at all given where the votes stand? And second of all, yesterday he gave his list of people that he would call Hunter Biden, Adam Schiff.
Yes.
You argue that none of them are relevant witnesses. Is there anybody on that list who?
Look, we're not going to, need the 4 votes. First, the Republicans can call any witness they want right now. What they're afraid of is the witnesses we've asked for. Okay? And so that is the first step. Now, if we get the 4 votes, I imagine there would be some negotiations. First step, get the votes. Thank you, everybody.